What if the smallest twist of fate, the missed bus, the wrong phone call, a single step left instead of right, changed your life forever? What if everything you know, everything you cherish, rests not on planning or determination, but on the fragile, unpredictable hand of chance? This is the question that haunted Brian Klaas one quiet evening. He had been scrolling through his notes, preparing for a lecture about power, politics, and the ways people rise to leadership. But as he sat alone, his mind wandered. He thought about his own life, the accidents that shaped it, the forks in the road he never intended to take. And then a thought struck him: what if every one of us is the product of 1,000 accidents? What if life itself is just one big fluke? Brian began remembering moments, small ones, almost trivial, but with consequences that rippled through the years. He remembered the rainy morning when his train was delayed, and he had no choice but to stand on a crowded platform. There, pressed between strangers, he struck up a conversation with a fellow student, someone who would later introduce him to a professor who became his mentor. Without that one delay, his entire career path might have looked different. He remembered the night he almost didn't attend a small gathering of friends. He was tired, he wanted to stay home. But he went anyway. That night, he met the woman who would later become his wife. If he had stayed home, the entire story of his love, his family, his future, might have vanished before it ever began. But it wasn't just his own story. He thought about history. About how a single wrong turn in Sarajevo in 1914 led to an assassination that ignited the First World War. About how one overlooked error at Chernobyl changed the course of nuclear energy for decades. About how the fate of millions can turn on the slip of a driver's hand, the hesitation of a leader, the random shuffle of a deck of cards. The deeper Brian went, the more haunting the thought became: we pretend we're in control. We make plans, set goals, tell ourselves stories about discipline and destiny. But how much of it is really ours? How much of it is just luck, good or bad? As he wrestled with these questions, Brian decided to bring this idea into his teaching, into his writing, into conversations with others. And soon, he found himself sitting across from people with stories of their own. There was Caroline, a nurse who had once missed her shift because her alarm clock failed. She was furious at the time until she learned that the ward where she would have been working suffered a gas leak that night. She told Brian, with tears in her eyes, that she believed she was spared for a reason. But was it fate? Or just a fluke? There was David, who had been denied from his first-choice college. He felt his life was ruined. Instead, he enrolled at a smaller school, where he discovered his passion for environmental science and later went on to lead a movement that saved